Olá amigos, tudo bem? Espero que sim. Bem-vindos a mais um vídeo do canal. Meu nome é Miguel e sou um super fã do Brasil. É isso mesmo, galera. Eu estou aqui com um vídeo totalmente em inglês. É isso mesmo, é um vídeo do canal do Juan Marcel e Raylan. É isso mesmo, galera. E o vídeo, o título e tudo, está tudo em inglês. É lógico que vai ter legendas para quem não percebe. E eu penso que este vídeo é importante porque eles vão falar um pouco, pelo menos foi isso que me disseram, eles vão falar um pouco daquilo que os mídia tiram cá para fora sobre o Brasil e a dificuldade que as pessoas têm em encontrar, às vezes, boas informações sobre esse grande país, esse maravilhoso continente. Isso nem é um país, é um continente. Que maravilha! É assim, The True About Brazil, Worth Visiting, Safe, Bad Things to Do. É isso mesmo que nós vamos ver. Bora para o vídeo sem mais longos, mas antes disso, vale a pena lembrar que o link para o vídeo original é logo o primeiro link na descrição do meu vídeo, para você visitar este canal. Se lhe agradar, deixar por lá também um like. Pelos vistos, são pessoas que correm o mundo ou correram o mundo e deve ter alguma coisa que lhe interesse. Passe por lá, veja, inscreva-se, deixe por lá o like, eu já fiz isso. E claro, agora, antes de ir mesmo para o vídeo, inscreva-se aqui no canal, deixe o seu like, deixe a sua sugestão. Se quiser ajudar o canal, torne-se membro ou deixe aí um super thanks. Não se esqueça que há aí uma morada na descrição do vídeo. Se você quiser enviar algo para colocar aqui no cenário, aqui atrás de mim, seja muito bem-vindo. Envie aquilo que você quiser. Tanto faz uma camiseta do Ibis, um quero-quero, uma anaconda, seja o que for, envie, será muito bem-vindo aqui a Portugal. Ok, estou a brincar com a anaconda. Ok, então agora sim, bora lá para o vídeo e vamos ouvir então o que é que estes gringos têm a dizer aí sobre o Brasil e qual foi a experiência deles na preparação da viagem deles ao Brasil. Atenção, isto é muito importante, que é para nós compreendermos a imagem que os gringos têm do Brasil e das dificuldades que é ir ao Brasil. Bora lá.
If you've been a part of this channel for a while now, you know that we have been traveling full-time for around 2 years, and we just counted the other day, and we've visited around 20 countries during that time.
And with that being said, we just were in Brazil for 2 months, and we can say confidently that it is one of our favorite countries ever. It's probably top 3 for us.
Yeah, definitely top 3, I would say. But the sad part about this is that it is a trip that almost didn't happen, because leading up to the trip we were researching things about Brazil, and it was so hard to come across anything that wasn't negative or warning heavily against going because of violence or safety issues. It was honestly difficult to find many positive sources of information or things that would encourage us to take the trip. So we decided, after having such an incredible time in Brazil, that we wanted to contribute something positive to the conversation, because we believe Brazil is one of the most special places on Earth.
It should not be missed.
No. In this video, we will be going over the reality of safety in Brazil, our tips for traveling in Brazil, the 10 things that we know will make you fall in love with Brazil, and our top recommendations for things to do when you do go to Brazil.
Meus amigos, aqui está alguém que quer mudar um pouco a ideia do Brasil para as outras pessoas do mundo, para poderem visitar esse Brasil. Eu nunca estive aí, infelizmente, mas é assim. Eu já corri muitos países do mundo e muitos deles as pessoas criaram tabus e criaram lendas urbanas de que aqueles países eram isto, eram aquilo. É assim, em todos os países há problemas, em todos os países é difícil algumas coisas, mas é assim, não podemos dizer que o Brasil é só coisas más, assim que a terra no aeroporto já foi roubada. É muito fora da realidade. Epá, poderá acontecer a alguém, o menos afortunado poderá acontecer, mas eu não acredito que todas as pessoas que vão ao Brasil corram esse risco todo, desde que, claro, andem dentro dos parâmetros locais onde devem andar. Devem ter cuidado e salvaguardar os seus bens, mas isso em qualquer parte do mundo. É assim, vamos lá continuar.
So going into our trip, one of the main safety concerns that we were hearing and reading online was that if we have any electronic devices out, it would be stolen.
Yeah, and that was a big concern because obviously we are content creators. So we knew we're always going to have a camera out, we're always going to have our iPhones out, taking pictures, videos. And the way that the outside media made it seem was like they will see this and you will become a target for like a violent attack or something. Like they're going to come up to you at gunpoint in broad daylight and take everything that you have. And we were like, oh my gosh, we cannot risk this. Like, we have a lot of expensive equipment and we obviously don't want to be robbed. However, the reality is, and what we learned as we were there by talking to people and just being there for a little while, was that a lot of what happens is a careless tourist, you know, is hanging out right by the bike lane and they're like kind of on their phone or taking a video, and then somebody on a bike will pass by and just grab the phone.
Snatch their phone,
Or someone will be on the beach and leave their phone while they go into the water, and then somebody grabs it while they're away in the water, you know. Just careless mistakes like this, you cannot get away with those things as easily in Brazil. But that actually applies to a lot of major tourist destinations, I would say. You kind of need to exercise increased street smarts in Milan or
New York.
London. But oftentimes as a tourist in Brazil, you're just going to be around a bunch of other tourists who are also using their phones and cameras to capture things, and you're going to be completely fine as long as you just use some level of street smarts and you're using your devices with intention. You're not just waving them around carelessly or leaving them unattended.
We really wanted to cover this one because it was a major red flag for us, and the reality of it is that the way that the media portrays it is so different than how it actually is.
Besides this, a lot of the other concerns were related to just general violence in Brazil. The reality...
Meus amigos, eu quero que este vídeo seja muito partilhado, tanto o meu como o destes dois jovens, que é para as pessoas terem consciência que as coisas muitas das vezes acontecem porque as pessoas andam simplesmente a pedir que alguém passe e leve. Estão a perceber que as coisas não são assim como muita gente diz, que se chega e já se arruma. É lógico que você se deixa as coisas desamparadas, se deixa as coisas num sítio onde alguém pode colocar a mão sem você se aperceber. É lógico que sim. E quanto ao resto, mesmo os assaltos à mão armada e isso aqui, isso acontece em qualquer lado. É assim, poderá ser mais provável no sul da América, poderá. É assim, vamos lá não generalizar e não tornar um país maravilhoso como o Brasil parecer um inferno. Entendem? É assim, foi o que estes jovens aqui no início disseram, que estiveram quase a desistir da viagem para o Brasil por não terem dados bons, coisas boas, tanto da mídia e de muitos youtubers que querem ganhar views e só mostram a coisa má do país. Eu sei que muita gente vai aí aos comentários dizer mas Portuga, o Brasil é mesmo assim. O Brasil não é mesmo. É assim, eu aprendi uma coisa já há muito tempo. A realidade do mundo não é igual para duas pessoas. Eu vejo o mundo de uma maneira, a minha esposa vê de outra maneira, outra pessoa vê de outra maneira. As realidades são todas diferentes. E é assim, há muita gente, parece que se fecha num globo com mais meia dúzia de pessoas e querem mesmo que o Brasil ou que outro país seja mesmo aquilo. Muitas das vezes não é, se nós formos ver e analisarmos bem o porquê é que as coisas acontecem.
Is that a lot of these statistics and things that you read about, they're pulled unfairly, I think, because they mostly relate to like the drug trafficking and stuff that are happening along the borders, or violence related between gangs in favelas or between the gangs and police. But as a tourist, unless you're really getting into some high risk behaviors, I just don't think you're going to be anywhere near any of that stuff. I really think it's blown out of proportion, and you know, there's always going to be exceptions to the rule, so I don't want anybody to go out there carelessly because of this. But I really think if you just use basic street smarts, once again, you'll be perfectly fine, and you should not let these things scare you. 100%. But one thing we do need to talk about in regards to safety is the dating and clubbing scene, especially in Rio. We are not big clubbers or partiers, but when we were researching Brazil, we did come across this lovely YouTube channel. His name is Swedish Gringo, and he's so, I love his videos. He's so funny and cool. And unfortunately, he had a very traumatic experience happen to him where he was drugged and robbed. He was going out in the neighborhood of Lapa in Rio, and he talks in depth about all that. We're going to link his channel because if you're looking to go into the clubbing scene or be dating out in Rio, you should definitely be aware of this. There's the rise of a drug called scopolamine. So that's very scary. It's not an area we're too knowledgeable on, but if you're going to get into that stuff, head over to his channel after this video and check those videos out. With all of that being said, let's get into some tips that will ensure you will have a smooth trip in Brazil. Starting with the most important tip by far, which is to learn a little bit of Portuguese before your trip. Apparently, only about 5% of Brazilians speak and understand English. Yes, this language barrier was nearly impossible to overcome without at least learning some basic level of Portuguese, which we did using the sponsor of today's video, which is LiveXP. LiveXP is an online platform available on desktop or mobile phone app where you can find language tutors for private one-on-one lessons. We found that it is super rare to find Portuguese on any language learning apps or services, but there are over 30 languages on LiveXP as well as 2,000 tutors from different countries. So we were so happy to find all of the countless native Portuguese speaking professional tutors. And one of the coolest features on LiveXP is that you can filter tutors by interests. So we did that and we chose eating out and traveling so that we could go more in depth on these particular topics and learn how to navigate basic conversations around them in Portuguese. It was also amazing that we could pick native speakers specifically from Brazil, as they would be more aware of the nuances of Brazilian Portuguese versus Portuguese from Portugal. We suggest that you start learning 1 to 2 months before your trip, and you take about 1 to 2 classes per week, because Portuguese is a very complex language to grasp. Yes. You can use our promo code JMR30 for 30% off of any subscription, or if you're just looking to book a trial lesson for now to check it out, you can use the promo code JMR99 to book a 30-minute trial lesson for just 99 cents. We will also add some QR codes on the screen right now so you guys watching on TV can scan it on your phone. These are 2 amazing offers, so be sure to screenshot this or take a picture so you can save these offers. Otherwise, we'll have links for each option down in the description. Thanks again to LiveXP for sponsoring today's video, and now let's get into the next tip, which is do not go into the favelas. We never did, and although you probably would be okay with a tour guide or something like that, we just feel like it is in poor taste to go into the favelas. Yeah, I mean, the favelas and the people that are in them are not really there for your amusement. At least that's our opinion. And on top of that, it's just a little more of a volatile situation that you cannot control. Even if a tour guide is with you, it doesn't guarantee you're just going to be safe. That is a separate world from like the tourist areas. Yeah, for sure. And the next tip is to use Uber. It is super affordable and there's always Ubers around. It works super well all over Brazil. We used it to get to our accommodation from each airport. And if you're out at night and you have like a 10-minute walk back home, even though you'd probably be completely fine and safe, you might as well just call an Uber. There's always one like within 5 minutes away, and it'll be so cheap. Like it's so crazy cheap. It's really cheap. And on that note, you should download the app Rappi. It is a food delivery app, and it will bring your food right to your Airbnb, or groceries. Yes, or groceries. And I think like pharmacy is on there too, which is so nice to have. It's super convenient and super cheap. Once again, we had food delivery more than we'd like to admit while we were in Brazil, and it averaged out to like $20 US for both of us to have a
like
good
per meal
delivered to you.
Which is crazy.
Use Rappi.
Now let's talk about the 10 things that will make you fall in love with Brazil. Starting out with our absolute favorite thing about Brazil, which is the people.
The people are some of the most friendly, charming, and just all around cool people in the entire world. They were constantly stopping us in the street when they saw us filming and stuff, being like, where are you guys from? Oh, you should check out this thing right here, or please visit this part of Brazil. Like, they're so just proud of their place, which is actually the next thing that we know will make you fall in love with Brazil, which is how proud the people are of their country. There are very few places in the world that we have ever visited where the people that live there are so overwhelmingly proud and just want to share it with you and so welcoming. It's really charming. Every time we posted a video from Brazil, the comments were flooded with people being like, do this next. No, I believe this part of Brazil is the best. Everybody has their opinion on it, and it's always just positive and happy, and I don't know, I love that. It just makes you feel like you're in a very special place at all times, and it's super endearing. And the next thing that we know...
Meus amigos, eu espero que dia alguém perceba o meu amor pelo Brasil, por esse grande país. Estas palavras destes gringos são pouco daquilo que eu sinto, que eu vejo no povo brasileiro, além de especular estas situações aqui da internet, estes mimimis, que deste lado uns são assim, do outro lado são assado, e que há muito racismo e outras coisas mais. Mas é assim, eu acredito que toda a gente possa viver bem, juntos em qualquer sítio do mundo, e esse sítio que eu quero muito é o Brasil, galera. É o Brasil. E mais uma vez está aqui a prova viva que o Brasil é um país excelente. Muito, muito, muito.
What will make you fall in love with Brazil is the diversity throughout the country. And we mean this in multiple ways. The different cities, the different vibes and energy in each of the cities, the climate that changes from tropical to Amazon jungle to beach, mega city, just so much diversity in that way. And then on top of that, the people. One of you actually said once in our comments that the Brazilian passport is the most commonly faked passport in the world. And that's because anyone can look like a Brazilian, because there are so many different types of Brazilians. You can be dark-skinned, light-skinned, blue eyes, green eyes, red hair, blonde. It's such a beautiful diversity and mixture of different combinations.
And that's actually due to its incredible history, which is another thing that you will love about Brazil, is its history. Brazil has such a rich and intense history, from the native South Americans to the Portuguese colonial times to also the slave trade and much, much more.
Yeah, it was very mind-blowing for us. As you're traveling through Brazil, it's impossible not to just learn something because of the amazing architecture and art that's all over the place. You're just gonna naturally be curious. The food even was something that I was really blown away by. There's a lot of influence from different parts of the world, which is actually the next thing that we know will make you fall in love with Brazil, the food. It's no secret that Brazil has some of the best food in the world, from muqueca to Brazilian barbecue
to acarajé, which was one of my favorites. But another thing that surprised us was the international cuisine.
Being that Brazil is so massive, it has the largest population of like Japanese people outside of Japan, also African people outside of Africa, and because of that, there is so much amazing international cuisine available to you while you're there. Speaking of the food, the next thing that we know will make you fall in love with Brazil is the caipirinhas.
Oh my gosh, we had one like every single day.
We are not big drinkers.
We're not big drinkers at all.
Like, never really get drinks with dinner or anything, but literally, probably during our time in Brazil, we had at least 1 to 2 caipirinhas per day.
Yes.
They're just so light, refreshing, and delicious, and they're kind of impossible to avoid, honestly. Like, they serve them everywhere, even on the beach. We were literally having caipirinhas on the beach from vendors walking around with these trays full of different flavors of caipirinhas.
Which leads me to the next thing that will make you fall in love with Brazil, which is the beaches. From the world famous Ipanema Beach to Praia do Barra in Salvador to Praia do Campeche in Florianopolis.
Yeah, you got that?
Yeah, it was a tongue twister.
Yeah, it was.
These were some of the most incredible beaches that we've ever stepped foot on.
Oh yeah, the water is like crystal clear. There's people playing football all along the beach, and I loved how you could always hear somewhere in the area some beautiful samba or bossa nova playing, which actually leads me to the next part of Brazil that we know you will fall in love with: the music. Brazilian music is arguably the most beautiful music in the entire world, and they know that. That's why you will always hear it somewhere around you, not only on the beach, just walking through any of the many cities in Brazil. It was beautiful. That's one of my favorite parts about Brazil, and I'm going to miss it so dearly.
Yes. And the next thing that you will love about Brazil is the art. Art is my favorite thing in each country that we visit, so it is so important to me, and I feel like Brazil has some of the best art that we've seen.
It makes sense because they have such an expressive and diverse culture that it just makes sense that their art would be so powerful. But my favorite part, honestly, is the art that spilled out onto the streets. Like, there's so much graffiti all over the buildings, which some complain about, but I saw a lot of beautiful art just right there. I don't know, I just thought the whole country was just like one big museum or a gallery, honestly. There's so much expression all over it. And last but not least, the thing that will make you fall in love with Brazil is its affordability. Due to the fact that we were in each city that we visited for shorter spans of time, we did not really grocery shop and cook many meals at home. We were mostly eating out at restaurants or ordering food in. And even with that, throughout the course of 2 months, we would say we spent a fraction of what we would spend in half the time in Europe or something like that. Now that we have finished actually convincing you to take the trip to Brazil, we want to give you our top recommendations to do when you are there. But with that being...
Meus amigos, é bom ouvir falar os gringos assim de país maravilhoso como o Brasil. Eu estou aqui, estou a rir porque é assim, é verdade, ouviram o que eles disseram, eles gastaram 1/4 daquilo que gastaram em qualquer outro país da Europa durante os 2 meses que tiveram no Brasil. Eu sei que a realidade do brasileiro muitas das vezes é um pouco diferente, mas para vocês verem, eles gastaram 1/4 e nunca cozinharam em casa. Na Europa, eu não sei 1/4 de quanto, vamos imaginar se eles gastaram 2.000 euros ou 2.000 dólares por cada mês que tiveram na Europa, não é muito difícil, ou vamos dizer 2.000 dólares para 2 meses. É quase impossível, mas para 2 meses, por exemplo, em Portugal. 2.000 dólares em Portugal não é assim grande coisa para passar 2 meses. É assim, tiver que pagar hotel ou uma pousada, seja o que for, esse dinheiro metade já vai quase, ou vai todo, para 2 meses vai todo já ali para pagar 2 meses. Depende da época do ano, mas é sempre, por mês, vai sempre muito perto dos 1.000 euros. E depois, claro, temos a comida, refeições, isso que é bem caro aí pela Europa. Eu sei que muita gente, se calhar muitos brasileiros que me vêm aqui e que moram em Portugal podem dizer: mas não é assim tão caro português. É caro quando o turista vai para um lado qualquer. Eu sei do que falo, com licença, eu sei do que falo. É assim, nós raramente sabemos exatamente onde comer. Os locais é diferente, sabem sempre daquele sítiozinho onde o senhor daquele restaurante faz mais barato ou isto aquilo. Quem vai de fora, quem vai passar ali 2 meses, leva aquelas informações que recolheu online e aquelas dicas que lhe deram mas depois é muito difícil no terreno fazer render o dinheiro. E é muito bom ouvir aqui estes dois gringos falarem tão bem do Brasil. Espero que você esteja a gostar. Não se esqueça de passar lá pelo canal deles e, claro, passar pelo Instagram e inscrever lá e seguir-nos. Seguir aqui o canal no Instagram.
Being said, Brazil is massive, and even with our 2 months there, we barely scratched the surface.
Yeah.
So this is by no means us saying these are like the only things to do. There's endless things that you could do in Brazil, and there's so much more that we want to go back and do.
So anyways, we are going to focus on the 3 big cities that we think are mandatory to visit in Brazil, starting with Rio de Janeiro. The first thing that we did in Rio, which we highly recommend, was going to Ipanema Beach. The first time we went to Ipanema Beach, it literally brought us to tears how beautiful it was.
It was ridiculous.
It was so beautiful. There was mountains all around you. The people playing soccer on the beach and the umbrellas, how colorful everything was. It was just so beautiful.
Yeah, next up is the Sugarloaf Mountain cable car, which was, I mean, it's one of one. It's such a unique thing to Rio. It's something that everybody has to do when they step foot in Rio. But one thing we heavily recommend is that you buy the tickets online, and you have to do the express pass or fast pass, what was it called? We're gonna link it in the description for you because that line is no joke. We showed up at 3 p.m. to try and get there at 6 for sunset, and we barely made it. And the cable car ride itself is 6 minutes, so we were in line for like 2 hours.
2 hours,
And if we would have gotten the fast pass, which was just like a little bit more expensive, we would have walked right through. We saw people just walking right on. It was so frustrating. But once you get up there, it is just magical.
Yeah, the sunset is just so beautiful, and there's also like a helicopter pad from right there, so you can see helicopters like taking off.
Yeah, and there's a DJ up there. There's snacks and drinks, and the view is
incredible.
I think it's one of the best views I've ever seen.
The next one we are going to recommend is a very iconic one, which is Christ the Redeemer. If you're going to Rio, you're obviously going to go to Christ the Redeemer, and it is just so breathtaking. Yeah,
it's an obvious one, but it has to be on the list. It was worth the hype. I mean, before you even get up there, the COG train, which we recommend you book a ticket on the COG train because there's multiple ways to go up there, but the COG train was so like, it was just so nice.
It was so cool.
And so charming and easy. But once you're up there, what I will say is it is kind of an Instagram versus reality moment where you're not going to get that perfect just photo op for yourself and Christ the Redeemer.
No, there's a lot of people up there. It's very busy and crowded.
It's one of the 7 wonders of the world. You cannot leave Rio without seeing it, and it's worth every penny and all the crowd and everything because it's breathtaking.
The next thing that we recommend is Cafe Colombo. It was actually ranked one of the most beautiful cafes in the entire world.
In the top 10 most beautiful cafes in the world, and it makes sense. It was breathtaking. It felt like we were in a work of art.
It was like a museum.
And make sure you get the Brigadeiro.
Oh my gosh, the Brigadeiro was the most amazing thing I've ever had. It was so good.
And while we're on food, the last thing we want to recommend in Rio is this restaurant called Brasil. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. It's got this beautiful view of the hills and the city down below. And the food, that was our best meal in Rio.
It was my favorite meal possibly in Brazil as a whole. That's a strong statement, but it was so good. The palm heart was amazing.
It's a palm heart salad. Make sure you get that, you guys. Oh my gosh, it was so good.
Amazing.
And the caipirinhas.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so the next city we want to talk about is Sao Paulo, which I have a lot to say about because I believe this is one of the most underrated and disrespected cities in the world. When we originally arrived, we only planned to be there for like 1 week or even less actually, because most of the people and articles were saying that it's not really a great stop in Brazil and it's kind of just another city, or some people even called it like an ugly city. Man, it was so far from the truth in my opinion, in both of our opinions.
We loved it so much.
We actually ended up extending our stay there by
for like a month.
It truly truly is one of our favorite major cities in the entire world, and we did so much there that we kind of feel like we could do a whole guide just on Sao Paulo, but here are a few of the main highlights. Starting with Avenida Paulista. You gotta do this on a Sunday because it's a major road, like a 6-lane road, but on Sundays it closes down and no cars can go through, and it's like a full outdoor market.
Yeah, and it's so amazing. There's just people dancing everywhere in the streets, and the music is playing, samba music is playing.
Yeah, Rylan again literally had tears in her eyes when we were there because she was just loving how alive it was, and it's one of our favorite outdoor markets for sure that we've ever been to.
And right along Avenida Paulista is the next thing, which is MASP, which is one of the most famous museums in Sao Paulo, and it was so beautiful.
Yeah.
The room upstairs, which is like the main room, was one of the most beautifully set up art rooms that we've ever been in.
Like when we were walking along, we kept just being like, this is the best single room of a museum we've ever seen.
Yes.
They really nailed it there. The next thing that we recommend in Sao Paulo is Parque Ibirapuera, which is kind of like Sao Paulo's Central Park.
Yeah, it's huge.
Massive, and it's full of just greenery and people on their jogs and kids playing, and you can rent these tandem bikes.
Yes.
That's what
we were like
did.
side by side riding on this bike like thing.
It was so
cool.
cute and very affordable. So it's just a really fun thing to do, especially if it's a sunny, beautiful day out there.
The next thing we want to recommend is for those thrifters out there, which is Vo Judas Brescio. Hope I said that right. It's probably one of our favorite thrift shops that we've ever been to. It was so beautiful inside.
I am confident in saying it's the best thrift shop we've ever been to. I've never seen us act like that in a thrift shop. We were just like...
We were like kids in a candy shop. It was so
running
cool.
around. It's so well laid out. So many amazing pieces. Rylan got this incredible like 70s jumpsuit. So cool. And the owners were so friendly and nice. If you're a thrifter, you need to go here. That's why we had to put it on this list.
The next thing we want to recommend is a restaurant called Botani Cafe. It's so good, and they have all different types of food ranging from brunch to dinner.
Yeah, we went there for every meal. I'm pretty sure one day we literally went there for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Yeah, we probably did.
And the whole menu is amazing, but we specifically love the breakfast slash brunch.
We almost went every morning.
Yeah, they knew us, like every
They knew what we wanted every morning.
They knew our order.
Yeah.
They started throwing in a free cookie at one point. So they're like, you guys have paid our rent for this month. And while we're talking about food, the next thing I want to recommend from Sao Paulo is a restaurant called Tordesilhas, which was actually recommended to us by you guys. My gosh.
It was so good.
This meal was one of my favorites of all time.
Yeah, it really was.
You said your favorite meal was the one in Rio.
I know, and now I'm like, I don't know, this one was better maybe.
You can stick with that answer. Tordesilhas, my favorite meal in all of Brazil for sure.
So good. The next thing we want to recommend is Bar Samba. So incredible. It was our first time experiencing samba in Brazil.
It was so fun.
It was amazing.
Yeah, everybody was up out of their seats dancing.
Yeah.
The musicians were so good. And once they finished playing, they came off stage and actually like introduced themselves to everybody in the crowd. And the last thing we want to recommend in Sao Paulo is another bar. It's called Bar dos Arcos, which is actually in the basement of the Municipal Theater in Sao Paulo. This was such a cool spot. Word of warning though, you will have to wait.
Yeah.
We waited
2 hours.
It's a little ridiculous, but it's kind of something where once you get in, you completely forget about the wait because it was so cool.
It was so cool, and the drinks were amazing.
So good, and I love the process. You go on their tablet and they give you a little quiz to figure out what kind of drink you like.
Yeah.
And then they will hand pick certain drinks for you, and then you choose from that. It was so fun. And the next city we want to talk about is Salvador de Bahia. This is known as the soul of Brazil, where like Rio is called the heart of Brazil. I totally agree with that statement. It felt like the soul of Brazil.
Yeah.
It really was one of my favorite stops in Brazil. You have to make it here.
Yes. The first thing we want to recommend in Salvador is Pelourinho, which is the historical center of Salvador, and it is so amazing. The colonial style buildings are just so beautiful, and there's so much art and street performers. It was so fun to walk around in.
We actually stayed right there, which we heavily recommend, because you walk out and you're in like history. It's so beautiful. So we would suggest that you just walk all around Pelourinho. You can just wander around and see endless things, and eventually you need to walk over to elevator La Certa. This is the first ever urban elevator, and it was established in 1873.
Which is so mind-blowing to me.
And it basically connects the upper part of town to the lower town. It's history. You have to take it. Instead, I think you can Uber down to the lower part of town, but you should really take the elevator. It's so cool.
It's super easy, and it's very affordable, and it gets you down to like the lower half, which has a lot of things that you're gonna want to do.
And when you go to the lower part of town, make sure you go get some food at Ristorante Donna Susana. This place was so good. This is where we had the best muqueca of the trip.
It was amazing.
And the view from there?
Incredible.
Incredible. Absolutely incredible. And the actual place was featured on Netflix. On street food or something like that.
Of Latin America. Street foods of Latin America. Next, you have to go to Praia do Barra, which is a beautiful beach in Salvador. It is probably the most famous beach in Salvador, and is so nice. It's just
one of my favorite beaches we went to in all of Brazil.
I know, it was incredible.
There was like a market going on along the walkway when we were there. The beach was full of people. The water was beautiful. The view was incredible.
The view was amazing.
Yes, and the whole time you're looking ahead at the next thing that we want to recommend, which is the lighthouse over there. This is the best sunset we ever saw.
It really, this is actually the best sunset we ever saw. We might have said before Sugarloaf is the best sunset, but I think this is the best sunset we've ever seen. It was incredible. The sun was huge and just so orange, and I mean, I've just never seen a better view than that.
You're right there on this like hillside with this beautiful lighthouse, and so many people come to watch the sunset every day. And the cutest thing ever is that once the sun actually goes down, they all applaud.
And started cheering. It was so sweet.
Apparently, according to one of you in the comments, this is a tradition because you are thanking the sun for setting or something like that, which is just so precious.
So cute.
So after all of that, I think it's very obvious that our answer to the question of is Brazil worth visiting or not is yes.
Yes, 100%.
It's got to be at the top of everyone's bucket list. It's a crime that anybody has anything negative to say about it. That's how I feel. It was one of the most special trips we've ever taken. That's why we are making this whole video. Because it meant that much to us.
And we think it's so important to put out some positive information about Brazil, because it's something that nobody should miss, and I'm so glad that we did not miss it.
And with that being said, we hope that this video was useful to you guys in any sort of way possible. If it was, please be sure to leave us a like and comment. And if you'd like to see our adventures throughout Brazil, we fully documented our trip in these videos. And to all of our new Brazilian supporters, we thank you from the bottom of our hearts for all of your suggestions, love, and kindness throughout our trip.
You guys are the best. We love you.
Yes, and with all that being said, we will see you guys next week.
Meus amigos, e o vídeo de hoje foi este, um vídeo de gringos aí a falarem só bem desse Brasil, porque é isso que o Brasil merece. É isso, meus amigos. É isso que o Brasil merece, e eu sempre defendi isso. Por isso, você gostou tanto deste vídeo quanto eu gostei tanto que já nem quis interromper mais os gringos. Eu estava-me a deliciar com aquilo que eles estavam a falar, e depois com a muqueca de camarão também me estava a deliciar. É isso mesmo, galera. Espero que você tenha gostado, tanto quanto eu. Claro, inscreva-se aqui no canal, deixe o like, deixe a sua sugestão, partilhe com toda a gente, visite-nos lá no Instagram, e não se esqueça que o link para o vídeo aqui do João Marcelo e da Raylan está aqui na descrição do vídeo, aqui em baixo. O nome deste jovem, João Marcelo. João Marcelo, não me parece muito inglês. Bom, não interessa, não tem nada a ver com isso, mas o link para o vídeo dele está aqui já no fundo é logo o primeiro link aqui na descrição do vídeo. Então encontro marcado já para o próximo vídeo. Até já. Bye!